Hi, it's me. And today we are going to talk about how to make a desert scene. The first thing that you'll want to do is choose your species. You're looking for plants that have some kind of a connection to deserts. There are two general approaches that you can take. The first is plants that look like they could survive in a desert, things like cacti, for example. If you do not live in a hot desert area and you do and have access to real cacti, then you could also use things that are just kind of the same shape. So this little guy here is actually a Norfolk pine, but it has these long spines sticking out of it. So it looks similar to a cactus. You can see that there's a lot of different shapes here, everything from round to tall and skinny to wide and flat. All of these are going to work really well in our desert scene. The other approach that you can take when choosing your plants is to choose something that is drought tolerant. A lot of times people think of the Mediterranean as being hot and dry, and it is, but it's not really a desert per se. But there are definitely elements of the Mediterranean that will play into what we need for our desert scene. And so this collection of plants here includes things like rosemary, lavender, sage. These plants are all drought tolerant, which means that they don't need to be watered very often at all. This is great if you don't have a green thumb. They're also really tough and they can handle a lot of different kinds of conditions. For our purposes, they are going to work really well in the desert scene because they can handle the heat and the dryness. Once you've chosen your plants, the next thing that you're going to want to do is think about the hardscape, which are the non-living parts of your garden, things like rocks and boulders, pathways and walls, things like that. In a desert, these elements are really important for creating microclimates and providing habitats for all kinds of different animals and plants. In a small garden like this, you can use rocks to create a sense of enclosure or to define different areas. You can also use them to hold back soil or to create a seating area. Just by adding a few well-placed boulders, you can really transform the look of your garden. Another thing that you're going to want to include in your design is sand. Sand is an important part of any desert ecosystem. It's a great way to add visual interest to your garden. It also helps to retain heat, which can be important in a desert climate. You can use sand in a number of different ways in your garden. You can make a sand feature. You can put it in a trough or a container. You can even just sprinkle it on top of the soil. No matter how you use it, sand is a great way to add some texture and visual interest to your garden. In addition to the sand, you're also going to want to add some gravel or mulch. Mulch is important in any garden, but it's especially important in a desert where the heat can really dry out the soil. Mulch helps to retain moisture and prevent weeds from growing. It also helps to keep the soil cool, which is important in a desert climate. You can use a variety of different mulches in your garden, but some of the most popular options include things like bark chips, decomposed granite, and gravel. Bark chips are a great option because they look nice and they last a long time. Decomposed granite is a popular choice for its low maintenance and durability. Gravel is another option that can add some visual interest to your garden. Finally, you're going to want to add some accessories to pull your whole look together. In a desert scene, you could add things like a bird bath or a feeder to attract wildlife. You could also add some art or sculpture to add some visual interest. You could even add some lighting to create a magical nighttime look. Now let's talk about how to plan it all. If you're working with a large area, you may want to consider doing a dry creek bed. A dry creek bed is a great way to add some visual interest to your garden without having to plant anything. All you have to do is dig a shallow channel and then fill it with rocks and gravel. The rocks and gravel will help to create the illusion of flowing water. Dry creek beds are also great for directing stormwater runoff. This can help to prevent erosion and flooding. And it also helps to provide habitat for all kinds of different plants and animals. If you're working with a smaller area, you may want to consider planting in a raised bed. A raised bed is a great way to add some structure to your garden. They're also great for growing plants that need good drainage, which is important in a desert climate. You can build a raised bed from scratch using materials like wood or stone. Or you can buy a ready-made raised bed kit. Raised beds are also great for adding visual interest to your garden. You can paint them in bright colors, or you can add climbing vines to them. If you're growing vegetables in your garden, raised beds are also great for adding some vertical interest. You can grow things like cucumbers and tomatoes up a trellis or a fence. This can help to save space in your garden, and it also looks really nice. When it comes to watering your garden, less is definitely more. In a desert climate, it's important to water your plants deeply but infrequently. This will help them to develop deep root systems, which is important for drought tolerance. You can use a variety of different watering methods in your garden, but some of the most efficient options include things like drip irrigation and soaker hoses. These methods deliver water directly to the soil, which helps to prevent evaporation. You can also use a watering schedule to help you remember when to water your plants. In general, most plants in a desert climate need to be watered deeply about once a week. But of course, this will vary depending on the type of plant and the weather conditions. As far as what plants to include, there are a lot of different options here. If you want to go with the cactus look, you can include things like aloe vera, echeverias, haworthias. All of these plants are succulents, and they have the same kind of look and feel of a desert. If you want to go with the drought-tolerant approach, you can include things like lavender, rosemary, sage, thyme, oregano. All of these herbs are native to the Mediterranean, and they grow really well in hot, dry climates. One of my favorite things about the desert is the way that the light plays across the landscape. The harsh midday sun can be really beautiful, and the shadows cast by the plants and rocks create a really interesting look. To capture this in your own garden, try to choose plants with interesting foliage textures. Plants like aloe vera and echeverias have thick, fleshy leaves that look really nice in the harsh light. Succulents also have a lot of different colors, shapes, and sizes, so they can add a lot of visual interest to your garden. If you want to attract wildlife to your garden, there are a few things that you can do. First, you can plant native plants. Native plants are plants that are naturally found in your area. They're adapted to the local climate and soil conditions. So they're really the best option if you want to attract native wildlife. Second, you can provide food and water sources. In a desert, this could be in the form of a bird bath or feeders. Finally, you can create a habitat that's suitable for the wildlife in your area. In a desert, this could mean creating some areas of shade and shelter. You can create a shady area in your garden by planting trees or shrubs. Even a small tree or shrub can provide some much-needed shade in a desert garden. You can also create shelter by piling up rocks or logs. This can provide a place for animals to hide from predators or from the harsh weather conditions. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make a desert scene. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.